Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. And hello, Reshma. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. So, Reshma, society often glorifies this idea that, women can do it all with ease and a smile, have that exciting career, be a mother or caretaker. Can you tell us a bit about your experience during the pandemic and how you realized that something fundamentally had to change?
So, Chaarmika, I found myself in the pandemic with two little kids, running Girls Who Code, and it nearly broke me. And I have resources. And I learned the hard way that, having it all is just a euphemism for doing it all. So much about what we've been telling women is the big lie. We've told them to just find a mentor, color code your calendar. Like just the corner office is just an express train. Just jump on it. Just girl bust your way to the top and lean in. And we've been trying to fix the woman instead of fix the structure. And the reality is across the world, 2/3 of caregiving work is done by women. So before women even get to the office or get to their job, they've already done 2.5 jobs. And this has reached a breaking point for so many. And the pandemic just exposed something that we've always known. And now's a moment for real change.
And during the pandemic specifically, we saw an exodus amount of, women leaving the workforce to take care of their children or family, far more than men making the decision, probably because of gender roles they're assigned. What do you think will be the long-term effects of this reality? And, what do you think we as activists can do to ensure all women and girls have, a real choice in where and how they can work?
What terrified me was seeing the ramifications of the lack of a care structure on my students. So many of my girls had done everything, to take that computer science class, to get to that internship, and they were just so excited to start college. And so many of them had to essentially put off their plans because their parents were essential workers, and they had to stay at home and caretake, for their younger siblings. And so you saw so many dreams die on the vine. You saw, again, generations of young people, young women who've essentially been set back because we know that girls are the ones that are having to do that caregiving work and having to give up their schooling, their opportunities, and their dreams, for this.
And I think this is what they call time poverty, girls having less amount of time to pursue what they actually want. That is so true. I mean, the decision that they took now definitely impacts the future generations coming in. And the pathways that are presented to girls, who are looking to plan their future are often binary, either prioritizing work or parenthood. What advice would you give to young women planning their careers or setting their goals right now?
This is a hard question, Chaarmika. I struggle with this, right? Because for so long we've told girls to you could be everything, you could be anything, just, work really hard and, get to the top. But we also know that, a lot of young women want to be mothers, and we know that kind of this deal that we've made to participate in the workforce is that we're going to have to hide our motherhood, or sacrifice our motherhood or, be having to make unconscionable choices. My parents were refugees. And so from the time I was, 8 or 9, I was a latchkey kid, and I grew up in a community that didn't have a lot of people of color. And I think about how, my sister would pick me up at school every day and we would run home and then run in the house and just lock the door and hide. And I think about my mother at 3:45 and how she felt about her 2 babies having to do that. And so I want this next generation of girls, to take on caregiving, and to take on and to build a better world, than we have left them with, and to prioritize equality there. And what that looks like is not just about fighting for equality in the workplace, but fighting for equality at home, making sure that men and boys, are doing 50% at least, of the caregiving work, and creating workplaces, where you don't have to hide your motherhood, where we have, paid leave, where we have affordable child care, where we have flexibility, we prioritize, mental health. It is up to this next generation of girls to redefine work and make it work for you.
The way we look at the next generation of work, paid leaves, mental health leaves, and even paternal and maternal leaves are equally important, is what I believe. And this is a very good segue to the next thought or a question I had in mind. That is, how can boys or men who are looking to support women in their lives actually play a vital role in creating this change for the next generation?
I have 2 boys. I cried when I found out I was having a boy because I joke it was so off brand, but so much of what I'm teaching, Sean and Sai is to be caregivers, is to learn, how to fulfill that role. I take my sons everywhere I go, everywhere I speak, every speech I give. And it's funny, my 7-year-old now is like, Mom, why do you do everything for girls? What about boys? And I'm like, I'm going to keep doing everything for girls and women. I'm going to tell you why. And you're going to be leading this movement with me, as an ally. So I think that we have to think about how we're teaching our boys differently, and how we're actually engaging them in this fight and in this struggle. And, I see this happening with young men. I always tell the story how a couple of years ago, I went to go visit this university that had done tremendous strides in increasing the amount of women in computer science. And I was going to Rochester Institute to talk to the women in computing group. And as I go in there, there's a group of boys that are sitting in the back. And I'm like, who are you? And they're like, we're the men who support the women in computing group. These young college students had formed a club inside of a club. And they said to me, Ms. Saujani, we know that women face microaggressions. So when there's a microaggression made in a classroom, we're going to stand up. When we come back from a tech interview and we know what the questions are going to be asked, we're going to tell you, but we see it as our struggle too. And we're going to use our power and our privilege to actually be at the front lines. And I think that is the expectation that we have to have for men and for boys.
That is so true. I think that's where Girl Up also stands, right? I think the quote that goes behind Girl Up is when girls rise, everyone rise. And I think that is very fundamental to be put on in the system itself. And something that you also mentioned in your TED Talk was about how boys are taught to be brave and how girls are told to be more of a perfectionist sort of people. But I think both of them have to be trained for both at the end of the day. And although there's nothing called perfection, including the system that we are living in, what kind of political or societal changes do you think we need to see to adequately support women and girls?
Well, one, we need to make sure that we have autonomy over our own bodies, and that we support, reproductive access. And that is a priority because it begins with having autonomy over your own bodies, period. Secondly, we have to commit to making sure that girls get educated and girls get opportunities. It's why I started Girls Who Code, because we knew that tech jobs were the jobs of the future. And again, as the daughter of refugees, it's like, these are good paying jobs. You can march up into the middle class. And we need girls solving these problems. We need girls sitting at the front lines, finding a cure to cancer, COVID, and climate. We need them sitting around the table so we don't have, apps or programs, that are racist or sexist, that are, inclusive to all, non-binary and trans. And so girls are, uniquely situated to understand and have the empathy and the commitment to equality and inclusion. And so we need young women and girls and women sitting at the forefront, of this. And we got to focus on leadership. So much of the decisions that are being made are being made without us in the room, but they affect us. And, this recent decision on reproductive access is an example of that. And so we have to continue to be pushing women to lead, which is why it's like, I'm on a mission to to root out the word imposter syndrome. The reality is 72% of, high school valedictorians are women. The majority of those with college degrees are women. The majority of those getting their PhDs and master's degrees are women. We are prepared. We are ready to lead. We are qualified. So don't let anybody tell you that you need to take another course, that you have to learn how to do a power pose, that you need to build more confidence, that you just have to get one more thing. No, you are ready. So lead.
Even in the sense of high school, I think it is both having equitable number of opportunities for girls and boys. And like you mentioned, the representation part is very important. I think men taking decisions for a large part of women in the country doesn't make sense, maybe in any developing country or developed country.
People don't give up power easily. And so the other thing I'm really encouraging girls to do is build your own thing. I always joke that if I had applied for the Girls Who Code job, I probably wouldn't have gotten it. And so what I've been doing my whole life is building organizations, building ideas, building funds, be a builder, create your own version or vision of equality, and you will build it as it will be inclusive. So I do want to make sure that we are continuing to encourage girls to be innovators and builders, because you're ready and we need you.
Absolutely love that point. Thank you so much, Reshma, for joining me. You're such an inspiration. to me and so many other girls at Girl Love. Thank you so much for joining me once again.
Thank you for having me.